They built empires on it. They wrote scripture about it. And then, almost every trace of it was erased from the history books you were handed in school. This isn't about ancient medicine. This is about a secret so old, so deeply woven into human civilization, that entire religions may have been built around a single cup of liquid nobody today can fully explain. Let's go back, nearly 5,000 years, to a river valley in what is now Iraq. The people there discover a flower, a poppy, and they learn that if you cut it open at just the right moment, it weeps a milky substance that erases pain and fills the body with warmth. They call it the joy plant. And from that single flower, a chain begins that will quietly run through nearly every major civilization that follows. The knowledge spreads, Sumer to Assyria, Assyria to Babylon, Babylon to Egypt, until by the height of the pharaohs, entire fields are dedicated to growing it. Egyptian healers use it for nearly everything: pain, sleeplessness, sorrow. It shows up so often in their oldest surviving medical scrolls that historians still debate exactly how normal it had become in daily life. When it reaches Greece, it becomes something almost mythical. Soldiers are said to take it before facing the battlefield, to quiet fear itself. Poets write of a drink that brought forgetfulness of every sorrow. The god of sleep is depicted holding the very flower it came from, and the god of dreams, the one whose name still lives inside the word we use today for the strongest pain medicine in modern hospitals, is surrounded by it in nearly every depiction. But here's the part almost nobody tells you. One of the most respected philosophers in human history, a Roman emperor whose writings are still required reading in university classrooms today, took this substance daily, prescribed by his own physician. The calm, reflective wisdom he's remembered for? It may have been written by a mind altered every single evening. For nearly 4,000 years, no civilization saw this as a problem. There was no concept of addiction. It was simply medicine that made you feel divine. Move forward slightly, and you find Egypt's elite doing something else entirely, soaking the petals of a rare blue water flower in their wine for hours before a gathering. It calmed the body, heightened the senses, and produced a soft, dreamlike state the Egyptians associated with connecting to the divine. It's carved into temple walls, painted beside gods of the afterlife, and when archaeologists opened one of Egypt's most famous royal tombs in the 20th century, dried petals of that same flower were found scattered across the body inside. Now travel east to ancient India, where an entire religious text, one of the oldest surviving scriptures on earth, dedicates over 100 hymns to a single sacred drink. Priests describe it as granting immortality, superhuman strength, and direct communion with the gods. One line reads simply, "We have drunk it and become immortal." And here is where the story turns from history into a genuine, unsolved mystery, because nobody today knows what that drink actually was. The plant, or the knowledge of it, vanished. Scholars have spent over a century guessing: a mushroom, a stimulant plant, some forgotten combination, and every theory remains just that, a theory. Somewhere in history, an entire civilization lost the recipe for feeling like gods. Further north, centuries later, a group of Norse warriors becomes the stuff of legend fighters, described as feeling no fear and no pain, driven by something their own people couldn't fully explain. Historians now believe part of the answer may lie in a plant found buried alongside them in old grave sites, one capable of producing intense trance-like states, feelings of invincibility, and even the sensation of flight. That same plant, applied differently, may be the real origin behind one of history's most enduring images, the idea of a figure soaring through the night sky on nothing but a wooden staff. And then, the piece of this story that connects everything. For nearly 2,000 years, the most sacred ceremony in ancient Greece was a secret so closely guarded that revealing it carried the ultimate consequence. Thousands traveled every year to take part, drinking a mysterious beverage made from grain and water. Grain, it turns out, is exactly the kind of crop that can be contaminated by a certain fungus, one that, in the right amount, produces vivid, reality-altering visions. Some researchers believe the priests running this ceremony had learned to harness that fungus deliberately, and the list of people sworn to secrecy after drinking it includes some of the most important names in Western thought, the very philosophers whose ideas about reality and the soul still shape how we think today. That same fungus resurfaces almost 2,000 years later, In a small colonial town in Massachusetts, a group of young girls begin experiencing violent convulsions and terrifying visions. The community, deeply religious and utterly unable to explain it, concludes they've been cursed. What followed became one of the most infamous chapters in early American history. Centuries later, a researcher proposed something chilling, that the grain harvest that year may have been contaminated by that exact same fungus. If true, it means the same substance that may have shaped the philosophy of Athens' greatest minds also played a role in one of history's darkest miscarriages of justice. So here's the question nobody likes to sit with. How much of what we call ancient wisdom, divine inspiration, or even philosophy was actually shaped by substances no history textbook ever mentions? We like to imagine our ancestors as either primitive or purely spiritual. The truth, buried in temple walls and grave sites and secret rituals, is far stranger and far more human. History wasn't erased by accident. Sometimes, it was erased because nobody knew how to explain what they found. If this kept you questioning everything you thought you knew, subscribe and stay for the next erased history we uncover.